All right, let's get started. Kelly, so welcome to have you. The context on the conversation here is me as I've always personally, I've always been focusing on performance marketing, right? Data-driven marketing. I've always been so focused on numbers, right? Getting the leads. But there were quite a few moments in my own journey. Whereas I've seen in my own eyes the non-performance part of marketing, which is mainly the content and the product marketing, was making an enormous difference. Without the inputs, without the help from a product marketing, the performance would hit a wall, right? For example, when I was working the fintech, we were targeting different audiences, whereas really the product marketing, we didn't have a product marketer, by the way, but the co-founder and me were kind of wearing the hat of the product marketing. We were seeking the positioning, and once we identify the positioning, we really unlock a 10x growth, right? From just from 1 to 10x, and then that happened again and again in the Grammarly time when the product became very complicated, right? How do we make a specialty from a generic horizontal product and create a connection, right, between very specialized audience, and that's multiply the response rate into that audience. So myself seeing in close distance on how product marketing work always amazed me. So it's so glad to have you here. I know you have an enormous background in the most reputable B2B SaaS companies such as the DocuSign and the Snowflake. So we're looking forward to hear more of a background story from you and learn all the tips from you. So yeah, here we go. I would pass the mic to you, and maybe you can start with the intro, and then we can dive into the secrets of the product marketing world.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, thank you, Bei. Thank you, Holly. Glad to be here and very excited to speak with your community. So yeah, brief background about myself. I was born and raised in Shanghai and came to the US for college. So my education background is in economics, and then I went to business school. So basically coming from a social science business background. I would say it is quite common among product marketers to have that kind of background if folks are curious. And I started my product marketing career right after business school. I first joined 2 different startups in the drone space back in 2017 when drone was sort of the hottest technology out there. I was focusing on the B2B drone applications, so using drones for like surveillance, firefighting, oil and gas operations, etc. Very fun, like learned a lot. As I was settling down in the Bay Area, I then sort of pivoted to the more mainstream software sense enterprise. So first was at a startup called Domino Data Lab. They're a system of record for data scientists. And then later, I joined more established companies, first at DocuSign in 2019 before the pandemic. So I was at DocuSign for 2+ years, really witnessed and was part of the journey in their pandemic-led hypergrowth. And then 2 years ago, I joined Snowflake. And at Snowflake, I focus on a couple of our priority industries like retail, consumer goods, travel, hospitality, and focus on the product marketing and go-to-market use cases for these.
Great. We'll love to hear more about the stories, right? We've seen how the DocuSign really exploded during the pandemic. So can't wait to dive in. But before we jump into the details, can you help describe the different type of the product marketing? Because myself, I've seen product marketers do all kinds of works, right? There are pricing, there's a packaging, there is a release, there's our solutions. Some I get to know more, some I get to know less. And then myself, when I was at one point when I was hiring a product marketer on my team, I was very confused because everyone I talked to, I seem to have a very different background, a very different responsibility. So can you maybe with your in-depth expertise in a more mature organization, if you can give some clarity on, right, how do you define the categories and what are the differences between the roles?
Yeah, definitely. It looks different by the company, but there's a few major roles. So the first one is like the core product marketing, basically working on product launches, bringing new product, new features to the market, releases, things like that. The second one is more the outbound product marketing. So usually it's called like solutions marketing or industry marketing. So that's the role I'm in right now, where it's speaking to a particular persona, whether it's say the marketing department or the procurement department or it's speaking to a specific industry about the industry-specific challenges. So you're sort of packaging up your existing offering, but really talk to the industry owners in their lens, like what are the regulations they're facing, or what are some of the business processes that's unique to them that you can help. For example, like a manufacturer or like a CPG company will have a lot of challenges when it comes to supply chain. But a financial services company don't have a supply chain. They don't make physical goods. So you wouldn't pitch like your solution around supply chain to them. So that's where sort of the industry work come in. The third piece is pricing and packaging. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Like, how do you like price? It's more common around like subscription-based business, where just like the different tiers of packages and the different prices of your offering. The next is competitive analysis. So that's like how you compare like the win-loss analysis, your strengths and weaknesses compared to your competitors, and also a lot of like monitoring what competitors are doing and saying, and how do you position your product against competitors. With that, there also comes like analyst relations. So that's like Gartner, Forrester. So these roles usually sort of exist when the company is in the category like Gartner or Forrester cover. Like, for example, at DocuSign, it was clear like DocuSign is the largest e-signature company, and they didn't really have like a magic quadrant when it comes to e-signature because it would be pointless for them to do it. Then DocuSign wouldn't have an analyst relation person. But for a lot of the other companies, it's less about the size of the company, more about the space you're in. If you're in a space that's highly competitive where the buyers really rely on Gartner or Forrester in their purchase decisions, then you have to play this game with them as well. And then I guess the last function some large companies have within product marketing would be like community, like developer relationships, if the product speaks to a very technical audience. And then the last comment I will make is at a big company, you will see people on different teams working on different roles. And then at the startup, you'll just see maybe one or two people wearing the different hats. So they can be doing competitive analysis and do product releases and sort of speaking to an industry audience, etc.
Yeah, that's very helpful. So I do want to double click on this one just to understand this more, right? So do you, as a product marketer, do you have to know all? Or do you just need to know a little piece in the company and kind of know other things in the same time?
Yeah, I think it depends on the size of the company. So if it's smaller, you do have like a wider scope, but then usually the product is less, it will have fewer features or fewer segments it's going after. Versus the big companies, you also need to know a lot, even though your role is more specified, because there's just so much going on within your own company's features and the product capabilities. I would say you need to like know enough, like you need to like understand the different topics. It's more, so a lot of PMMs wear different hats. So where in one company, they will be doing like the core product marketing, and then the next company, they can work on like a solutions role. And next company, they may be more focused on competitive analysis or spend a lot of time in analyst relations. So I think depends on the company, and when people make career changes, they have the same skill set. They can switch between the different sort of scope of topics.
Right. That's super interesting. So one question before we jump into the next one is how do you train yourself, right? Because in the school, like you said, product marketing typically came from a few backgrounds, right? Communication, social science, or economics, or product. And what you describe are very specialized skills, right? They could go very deep. And also tying back to my own technical background, right? If one person wanted to be let's say a data scientist, right, or engineer, you go through exactly the kind of curriculum, and after graduation, you go into the roles. But there is no curriculum for product marketing. So how do one pick up such a knowledge?
Yeah, I think it's mostly learning by doing, like on-the-job training. That's why sort of the first role in product marketing is the hardest to get. And then once you have that experience, it will be hard to get another job. And then you kind of just learn on the job. Another way is there are some online resources and certificate and programs you can take and learn, just like get the basis. I mean, these are not going to necessarily help you like get a job and stuff. It's more like if it's your first or second product marketing job, you can take these classes or ask questions via these communities to just help you hone your craft. And that's more like a lifelong learning. I feel like it's a craft that you can always get better at. Then you will always find this kind of learning useful. Yeah.
Right, exactly. I think when you're on the roll, the resources and the opportunities become a more available. But part of me think, hey, it's hard to get in for the in the beginning, right? No one was trained to be this role in schools. Got it. Cool. So to help us all, right, understand the typical work you do, because different roles seems to be responsible for very different things. Maybe can you briefly walk through like what are the typical tasks you do on the day or on the week, just so we can go into a little bit more details?
Yeah, happy to. I think I can maybe walk through this week as an example of like what a typical week looked like. There are like a variety of tasks usually. So our fiscal quarter is 1 month after the calendar quarters. So we actually just finished up our Q1 and then entered our Q2. So this week we are having our quarterly business review, sort of looking at what happened last quarter, what worked, what didn't, and then also planning for next quarter. So there's always like planning, analysis is like part of the work in product marketing. And then the second big part of my work is we have our annual conference coming up in June. So I am preparing and creating the content for our sessions. And then we also invited a lot of customers to speak at our sessions. So it's a meeting with the customers to prepare the content of these sessions, the topics, etc. And then at our annual conference, we'll also have our own booth. So there are a lot of content like demos and activations, so events we do at the booth or throughout the conference in general. So there's a lot of planning, content creation to support that. And we're also thinking about post-conference follow-up, like how do we get the most out of the conference content and the momentum, and how do we follow up? So with the conference, there's just like a lot of work going on, and that's also a very typical task area for the product marketers. The next one is more thinking about our sales plays, sort of what are some use cases our sales team can go after and talk to their accounts about. Then that includes sort of how do we measure it, how do we track it, who do we enable, how we do the enablement, so the planning and our actual messaging for the sales plays. I would say the next piece is enable the rest of the marketing team. So that includes sort of telling the rest of the marketing team what we're going to do next quarter, use case wise, messaging wise. Or I spend some time help review our SEO copies or like ebook or blogs, PR releases. Usually they will ask product marketers to review and sign off as part of the process once the writers have the content together based on the messaging product marketer provides. So that's mostly about it. And I'll also spend some time on just getting up to speed on our own new features. Like we're constantly releasing new capabilities, just a lot going on in the industry. So I always need to spend some time to make sure I'm caught up on all these latest.
Got it. Well, that's a packed day. So yeah, it does resonate in a few areas because when Grammarly organize events in the South by Southwest the other time, I definitely noticed the product marketing was taking a very active role, right, in setting the booths, right, preparing the topics, inviting the CEO on the stage and gather the audience and making sure, hey, the proper product release and the value prop were delivered to the audience. So that was a huge initiative. And you mentioned about the collaboration with the marketing team. So that's where I definitely had a ton of respect to our product marketing partners, because they help us define all the segmentations, and on the different segmentations, they kindly help define all the different use cases, right, and rank order the use cases and rank order all the benefits. So then the marketing team has this source of truth, right, source of truth, because it could go different directions. So with that, it almost at the time, the output from our product marketing team really act as a North Star or compass, right? We're holding that piece of a paper, right? That has what's the one liner, what's the feature 1, 2, 3, and use that to guide all the acquisition and all the life cycle activities. So all the marketing bidding, right? Ads bidding, and all the email copies are kind of going through that. So that was the really fundamental, right, inputs before even we go out to spend money.
Mhm. Yeah, that way people can self-serve, like if it's like a landing page or email copy or like a loop we are playing at the booth, they will know where to find things and what our key messaging. I would say the TLDR is like there is like a wide variety of tasks which keep the job interesting, and the time frame too. You can be working on something that's due next month or something you're planning for next year. So it's like a wide variety of timeline of projects we're working at as well. So it just makes it very dynamic and help you activate different parts of your brain to think both tactically and strategically, depends on the project.
Yeah, that's a good analogy, because whenever I get deeper into the product marketing, I absolutely, from an engineering background, I absolutely think I'm using the part of the brain that's never activated. So that was a fun. that's a fun, for sure, lots of fun. So with that, is that possible? You can share some of the like big wins and where you see, especially right, DocuSign and Snowflake saw tremendous success. Those are the biggest, really the biggest brands. And actually, I don't know if you know, right, when Grammarly decided to go all in on enterprise, they actually grabbed they invited the CMO from DocuSign. So the DocuSign CMO now is the Grammarly CMO. So personally, I do wish Grammarly would also have the enterprise success, thanks to Lena, I believe that's the name. So can you share some of the big wins that you think were driven by product marketing, so we understand a little bit more on the actual case studies?
Yeah, maybe I'll walk through my experience at DocuSign. So when I first joined in 2019, I was tasked to sort of put together our point of view and messaging and go to market to the procurement audience. So we didn't really have anything. Like when we talk to a procurement buyer, we wouldn't know what they're using DocuSign for and how to speak to them. So my first task was to really come up with our messaging and what's our story when we talk to the procurement buyer. So that we have something to say, right? We show that we understand them, know what their pain points are, like who's their stakeholders or their customers, and what's their business processes like. So after we have that foundational set of assets down, so that will be like web pages, solution brief, ebook. So like a foundational set of assets that the sales team and the rest of the marketing team can run with. The pandemic happened. So there's a lot of just inbound requests, like sort of moving very fast to make sure we can like solve customers' needs. And now they're moving to working at home. Like how do we address their work at home processes and workflows? So that's more reactive, just based on what's happening during that time. And then they are trying to figure out what they can do within the content in their contracts. Because we also had an early iteration of AI product that can help you read what's in your contract. So with pandemic, there's a lot of, this is called like a force majeure event or like an act of God. So actually a lot of the contract terms, agreements, you don't have to enforce it because of the pandemic. So we're sort of pitching solutions that are helping customers understand what's in their contract and understand what they can get out of because of the pandemic. So after that, so dust is settled, people are in this like work from home rhythm. They know what they're doing. They're like using DocuSign. We also need to sort of figure out, okay, use this great momentum and opportunity, right, to find the next growth lever, because we know or hope pandemic will be over and we'll need to find new growth engine. So then I did a lot of research, basically talking to our customers via interviews to understand what their existing workflow is like. And then, for example, within procurement, or if you're like a lawyer or a salesperson, you sign paperwork, but there's so many different types of paperwork. There's like state of work, there's MSA, there's a procurement contracts, there's a vendor onboarding documents. Imagine you go to like a bank to open up a loan. You sign like 20 different documents, but each one is a different document. So I did a lot of research to understand basically what are the different documents customers at procurement department is signing and where we'll give DocuSign sort of the most volume of contracts. So we can sort of really double click on that, right? If vendor contracts count as like 80% of the e-signature envelope they will use, then we'll like double down on vendor contracts as an example. So that took like both qualitative, like interview-based research, as well as quantitative research. So that also will include things like working with a vendor to do the research or coaching the vendor on what we need, etc., to find out what are the biggest use cases we can go after to then help sort of find a second growth lever for the company.
Got it, got it. I think you touch on some of the very critical elements of going deep into the use cases, right? Because even when I was in the strategy meeting in Grammarly, the DocuSign was brought up as a heavy reference because take a step back, right? Imagine, hey, you got a signature app, right? Sign. What it does, you put a signature on the paper, right? So how much you can do? It's kind of like a Grammarly, right? When you put out the Grammarly, it's correct grammar and make some suggestions on words, right? What else you can do? I think exactly to your point, it's the effort in going deep into the certain vertical, right? Understand the workflow, understand the differences, and then putting up the content and even customize the product properly to tailor the type of audience. So that makes all the huge difference. I guess, right? If you observe the conversions, right, from certain channels, it would make a significant difference. And that's exactly how I think how Grammarly has been leveraged and learned so much from DocuSign in terms, right, how do we define the customer segment while keeping the product still ubiquitous and universal, but from a messaging, right, how much of a specialization we want to do. And so we strike a good balance that, hey, the product is still catered to many wide audience, but when a niche audience comes in, right, the person will feel like, yeah, this is made for me, right? The app understands what I do. So that's I think to me that's probably the one of the most crucial value as a performance person that I got from product marketing, right? Is that accurate?
Yeah, and then that's also when sort of the use case, once you find it, it alone cannot really turn it into like pipeline or actual sales. So sometimes you might end up like working with a partner. So that's more like go-to-market side of things. Like another example is through the research, I found SAP obviously is very prevalent, like SAP Ariba specifically, very prevalent in the procurement world. And if we then identify an account who uses Ariba, and then we go after these accounts, and we have a very strong connector, and the product experience is really good, and we can sort of just focus on like a play going after Ariba accounts as an example, like for certain industries. So there's a lot of like working with the rest of the go-to-market team to, once we know what's this use case, right? How do we activate it can look very differently based on the audience. And that's also more cross-functional, like teamwork based to make it happen.
For sure. The activation piece, right? How to turn the insights into results. So that's surely important. Anything I'm curious, right? How about a Snowflake, right? The DocuSign was a really good case study. I think you would probably go to the textbook, right? And whereas a Snowflake is a very different product, right? It's actually compared to DocuSign, it is universal, right? Everyone could use it. There was a Snowflake is a hyper specialized, right? What's the anything you can share in the Snowflake where the product marketing is playing the role there, or the big wins?
I can share my sort of how my specific role helped. So Snowflake obviously was very successful as a cloud data warehouse, selling into IT, speaking to the technical audience. But as we want to sort of be seen not just in like an IT vendor, but really a strategic partner and position ourselves in sort of the data cloud AI world, we need to attach ourselves to the biggest business problems sort of all these companies are facing. So that would be things like supply chain disruption, or like the raise inflation. How is that gonna impact their business, for example? So once so we identify what really keeps the CEO up at night, what's like a board level initiative that the company is working on, then we think about, okay, how can we help, right? Supply chain is a data problem because you have so many data sources that's not talking to each other. Or like inventory planning, or like pricing and promotion. I think we've all seen ads where, say, on these e-commerce websites, there's only say 2 items left, but they're still like paying for the paid ads, or they're still offering a discount when they didn't need to because there's only 2 items left, versus there's some other items with a lot in inventory, but they're not running promotion against. Or you get like an ad for a bag that you already purchased 2 months ago online. Like these money are like wasted money. They shouldn't. That's because marketing data is not talking to the inventory or supply chain data. And then there's these data silos, and companies are basically wasting some of their campaign dollars. are not optimizing their pricing or promotion strategies. So once again, through like research, talking to industry experts, we also have in-house experts coming from the industry, as well as talking to the customers who are already using us for some of these more advanced use cases. We can identify these sales plays and then really speak to the customer at a business problem level and tie us to a business problem, sort of to help open up more opportunities and position ourselves more strategically with this audience.
Got it. Yeah, that's very helpful, and I think what you said does highlight the difference, right? In the older, that's the generation, right? Oracle database. Certainly, none of what you said was pretty much present, right? It has the different image, whereas even for Azure or even for AWS, right? It's not get to the point. Whereas a Snowflake come in, the whole perception and the use cases seem a lot closer. Right, a lot closer to the end users, and also touch on your point, right? You speak to the actual pain points. Even an end user can resonate, and then they probably go back to their decision maker to say, hey, we gotta think more seriously about this solution. So that's I wonder if that's why Snowflake is a very widely adopted by the younger companies' default solution. Right?
So native.
Yes, so native is very understandable. It's understandable for audience that doesn't necessarily have the decision power or all the technical depths. They don't have to be an IT expert to know what you're speaking to.
Yeah, I think taking a step back, sort of speaking more generally beyond like a particular company, it's like, say a company started with solving a particular problem. They're very successful, right? And then they can call themselves a point solution or platform. Basically, they're speaking to a specific audience, doing very well, but eventually the company will need to grow. They will need to enter new market, develop new capabilities, develop new features, and expand. And as they're expanding, then you need to change your positioning, your branding, like your messaging as a result of that. So it's almost like a natural evolution where you start focusing on the core product features, but then eventually you will need to tie yourself to a board level initiative as your company grow bigger and bigger. Yeah.
Got it. Well, that's deep.
Yeah, that's where the budget starts.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But very strategic topic. This is important stuff.
Yeah.
Well, there are some questions in the chat I saw are very interesting. I think could maybe we'll switch channel briefly. So Rochelle said, want to hear about how you define inbound and outbound marketing from a product marketing standpoint. I have some answers from maybe performance wise, but maybe how would you? I'm curious, right? How would you reply to this?
Yeah, I know some large companies like Meta used to have these inbound product marketing role where they do a lot of market research or user research, and then they feed that research insights to the product team. So a lot of product marketers has that as part of their role, is to be the voice of customer and also bring customer and market feedback to influence product roadmap. So a lot of the inbound PMMs do that kind of work. And then outbound product marketing will work more on like campaigns, sort of speaking to the external audiences. Some of them are launching new products, but some of them are more, again, like thinking about what to say at a conference, what to say at a webinar. So that's sort of how I would divvy up the difference between inbound versus outbound. And it also depends on the life cycle. Like you can't just be doing research all day long and not doing campaigns. And the product team and the engineer, they need to have the resource to even work on the insights you have, right? So it can be like this quarter you have a project that's more like user research focused, and then the product team has these research, they're gonna like prioritize it and figure out when to work on these. And then the next quarter you can spend your energy on some of the outbound activities, on campaigns and stuff. I find that to be the most healthy for a product marketer if you think about your own career growth. That way you're not just like doing one thing, it's like round out your skill set. You can do customer research, influence the roadmap, but you can also activate a campaign, enable the sales team. I would recommend not look for a role that only does one thing, but actually allows you to do both.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Kelly, I'm super curious about organizational structure and when it comes to product marketing. because product marketing has such a close relationship with product team, and in other companies with sales team, so it's highly cross-functional. Can you give some examples of the org structure, especially at a bigger enterprises? Where does your role sit? Where does the product marketing org sit, and who do they report into? And there's also an organization I observed that product marketing actually report into product org. And how do you think about that structure?
Yeah, I've only reported to product org once myself. That was at the drone startup, and then actually later internally they switched. I reported into marketing. I think it probably make more sense as the company mature for the product marketing organization to be reporting to the CMO eventually, and then so the product has their team, and then sales has their sort of leadership. And then usually there's a product marketing team, and then there's especially in the B2B space, there's demand generation, and then another big bucket will be like brand creative, content, in that bucket, and then we'll sort of work together, and then all rolled up to the CMO.
Got it. Yeah. Any follow-up, Holly? I want to double click on this.
Yeah, like what's the pros and cons you've seen on like a product marketing report into the product org, or chief revenue officer or some other org? But specifically, I think more often it's like a product org.
Yeah, I think reporting to the product org only makes sense as a startup when maybe they are not ready to bring on an experienced CMO yet, and it's very important to find the product market fit. And the product is very unique, very novel, like a drone or something. Like no one has done it. It's really like the first people have it. It's not like the next e-signature solution or the next web conferencing solution where people already know what it is. It should be like a net new category, net new product, and the product is sort of evolving really fast. Then maybe the product marketer can work with the product, sort of the V1 of the messaging, V1 of your positioning. And then once that's more settled, it would make more sense for a product marketer to move into marketing. I think one challenge, honestly, in terms of product marketing report to product is most product leaders have never done marketing. They wouldn't even know just what look good looks like, how to set expectation. Really, they wouldn't know how to even manage or lead a product marketer and like what to do. They don't have that know-how. Not from a people manager perspective, but really like, what does it mean if a messaging resonates? What does it mean that messaging is clear? They like not just knowing the standard or what good looks like.
That makes sense. Actually, like I saw Aria has a follow-up question related to this, right? Like, how do you know something works? Aria works at a early stage B2C startups, and she's wondering if you have any tips or thoughts on conducting user research. Product marketing role is like surveys or focus groups or interviews.
Yeah, I find actually the interviews to be the most helpful. So at startups, I've done like just reaching out to customers, have them look at our like website or messaging doc and just get their feedback. So give them a gift card as a thank you. So just to get their honest thoughts on whether our messaging is resonating or not. Sometimes for user research, in terms of if you actually want to know how the customers, you say like at DocuSign, what documents they're using us to sign, or at Grammarly, like what documents are they using Grammarly to help write or help like refine. Like if you want to know that level of details, sometimes you do user research. Sometimes you have to do some blinded user research where you have to work with a vendor to help you find these users, and they don't know you, which company you work at, so you can get the unfiltered view from it. So I'll work with a vendor if you first need to do blinded research, or you can't source these users yourself one way or another, like you don't have access to them. Quantitative surveys, occasionally, like say once you identify these are the 10 use cases that's useful, but you want to really put dollars behind it. Like, okay, so how much budget do I go after persona A versus persona B? How much money I should spend when it comes to campaign? Then you can do a survey to help you quantify the size of the business and then help you quantify how you allocate your resources. I find survey to be more helpful when just you want the quantitative insights like that.
Are there any tools or platforms that you use to do that, or typically you just create a Google form and send it to folks?
Yeah, the quantitative one, I did work with a vendor, so I think they just have one of the survey tools they use.
Like what tool do you? Oh, you mean like a vendor, meaning an agency, or
like a consulting firm, marketing research firm? Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, so maybe adding some different flavor to this one, right? Like you said, different company have different setups. When I was working in a B2C earlier stage startup, yeah, basically the survey, right? The founding team, founders, right? We do that together. Everyone wear a portion of the product marketing and survey hats and use whatever means, Google form, for Grammarly at a bigger scale, right? So there is actually a separate user insights team trying to take on this role. They definitely do the interviews and they generate reports, and they use tools like Qualtrics to do the systematic review, whereas the product marketer will get aligned and get a sign off, right? Making sure that the objective, right, the scope is what the survey is about. But they were helping doing the heavy lifting, right? Helping alleviate some of the burden from product marketing, because just there's so much, like you said, right? There's so much to do on that role.
Yeah. We also have user research group. They usually focus on like how well the product is doing. So they report into product, and then it's more like getting user feedback on the actual product performance. I would say the research I've done is more around like, is the messaging resonating? Is this word resonating more than that word? What are the use cases and your existing business process, and where do we fit in? Yeah, it's like a different flavor of it.
Yeah.
Got it. And just to double click on, how do you know if the messaging resonates, or how do you know the quality of the output? As a leader that may or may not be from a product marketing background, how should this leader assess the quality of output? If you want to double click on that a little bit.
Yeah, it's tricky, right? Because you don't want to stay in your own echo chamber and only talk to the friendlies who like your product. I would say if you like are talking through like a new pitch, or like an existing pitch to a new person, at least you can kind of see just by their facial expression, like, is it resonating? Did they get it? Did they get your vision, your story, or did they find it confusing? So like the story, whether a story is good or the narrative is clicking, it's usually pretty obvious, especially if you are talking to them via like a video conference or in person. So that's one way, but obviously it can be more anecdotal. And again, there is a risk of echo chamber if you're just only working with the friendlies. Then if you want to do it, if you have the budget and the time to do it just more objectively or more comprehensively, again, you can hire a vendor to do these messaging research. So there are some techniques they can use. Basically, they lay out the different version, like this version 1, version 2, like which one do you like more? Why do you like this? And then have them like explain why, say, version 1 resonates better with version 2, and that all of these can be great insights on how you improve, not just which version you choose and choosing, but how do you improve your existing messages? Because you get a lot of insights when people actually reacting to your copy.
Is there any like a rule of thumb of like sample size on these external?
It's actually not that big. Yeah, like 10, 20 is more than enough.
Got it. And you typically go with an agency to run this, or like I know recently
that work you can certainly do in-house. Like at startup, we did it in-house. So yeah, I think it depends on sort of how you allocate your bandwidth and budget.
What do you?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry.
What
do you think of like a messaging testing platforms? Like, Winter, for example, a lot of people have been using it to test B2B messaging, and there are a bunch of others. And what's your view on those?
I haven't used those myself, but I actually would love to try it. Yeah. I wonder do you hide the identity of your company? Because if you're testing out new messaging and you may not want, people in the world to know yet, is there a way to test it anonymously?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the tools are definitely getting. I heard a lot of good things about Winter, so haven't used that. yeah, there are some other tools that also can do the concept testing, and also some other people just do that on LinkedIn or Facebook ads, right, for probably more B2C purposes. Cool. Yeah, super helpful. So, well, Carol asked a question. I think we are getting there, but it's important, right? We probably want to pull this up front a bit, right? How do you tie business results to PMM initiatives, right? Is attribute basically how to measure. I guess the question is, right, how to measure a good or bad about product marketing, right? This is a crucial. This doesn't come up. This is not the first time it come up. This could also come up to all the other roles that are not directly tied to the sales and the marketing. So would it be interesting to hear your take on this?
Yeah, I think the ultimate North Star obviously would be like pipeline and revenue, like new business or revenue growth from your existing customers. But these things, especially in the enterprise space, they do take time. Like the pipeline might take 6 months to build, and then the deal may take like 12 months to close. And then for a company to actually pick up their usage of your product, that what we call consumption, like to actually use your product and you can count them as your bookings, that can be like a year or half from today, right? But ultimately, these are the goal. But in the interim, there's a lot of early signals you can use. So with the sales front, it can be there's a lot of like tools like HighSpot, etc., to track if sales are using your assets. Are they using your messaging doc? Are they using your decks? What's resonating? How is it being used? And how is it helpful for the field when they're pitching to customers? And then obviously you run like webinars, ebooks, blogs. So there's a lot of, you can see like how many people are downloading these ebooks or what's the page view for your blogs and stuff. So that can also tell you what topic resonates, right? Say if you decide to write a blog about supply chain, but it didn't get much traction versus you wrote a blog about personalization and it got a lot of clicks. Maybe that's also a signal to tell you, okay, the personalization initiative is something you should double click on and start to talk more about. Oh, the tool you're asking about, enablement, HighSpot, right? I think. No, High Touch. It was the.
Yeah, High Touch is a reverse ETL tools, right? But sounds like you were mentioning HighSpot. Okay. Got it. Yeah, sounds like a lot of the early signal HighSpot. Okay, great. Sounds like a lot of early signal probably exists in a database or GFO or mixed panel, right? Whatever the company is using to track the activities anyway. So HighSpot is an actual one. Sounds good. Ariel's asking the name of the messaging platform. You mean the testing platform? Winter?
Yeah, Winter.
Yeah, Winter. Okay. There you go. Winter with a Y. So, okay, cool. So now back on the other topics we still want to touch on. So the collaboration, right? You mentioned yes, it is from organization wise, it is more common for product marketing to sit under the CMO role while working very closely with the product, right? The product marketing is a very close tie between the two jobs. Can you maybe touch on how about the other stakeholders, right? You're basically the catalyst across different roles. Maybe it would be nice to maybe complete the picture. What are the main stakeholders you work with?
Yeah. So the first big side is the rest of the marketing team. So it depends on how you go to market or which channel you spend most of your energy on. Like it can be with the field marketing team, the events team, or it can be with demand generation on like webinars, with like content marketing, it'll be like ebook, blogs, like the PR team, a lot of the PR coverage, customer marketing. So it's really like enabling them and working with the rest of the marketing team on a lot of the marketing programs and activation. I think, Holly, going back to your earlier question on like reporting into product, I think that's another challenge if the product marketer reports to product is, if even the product marketer did a stellar job, it's still like in the doc or on a slide deck. They still need like a growth marketer, paid digital marketer, like whoever, like events marketer to actually put them out into the real world. But if the product marketer doesn't sit with the rest of the marketing team in the same org, there is like a potential for friction, or even just like you don't even know who they are, how do they operate, how do you activate your messaging and throughout their channels. So if you don't have that know-how and that organization structure, I think that's also a big hurdle, just to your impact wouldn't be as big, right, without the marketing activation and really putting the marketing engine and the machine behind your messaging. So the second big stakeholders is sales. That includes, first is obviously the individual AEs, like sales engineers, solution engineers, like the actual quota carrying sales. And then product marketer also works with a lot of the sales specialists or sales strategy putting together, because product marketing is one-to-many. So it's like putting together these broader programs or sales plays with all the different functions that support sales and support the individual quota carrying AEs. The next one is the product team. So that's like doing product launches, product releases, right? Before like a big product announcement, work very tightly with the product team on the launch. And then sometimes also providing input for the roadmap. The last stakeholder I would say is customers. So either through like customer research, or we also spend a lot of time on customer case study, like invite customers to talk. So we will like work with customers to tell their story via one of our existing channels. These days, companies have podcasts, conferences, like webinars, case study, all these different formats, and it's like everything everywhere at once. So product marketer usually work with customer marketing as well, and then work with customers on these. And I guess it does brought up some companies, right, that you do work with vendors a lot. So like being able to coach the vendor, like help the vendors do a good job to help you is also like a skill set product marketers. Sometimes if the company is structured that way, that's like a experience and skill set they need to have.
Got it. Yeah, it's a demanding role. So in some, it's a demanding role. You gotta know everything and kind of work with all the important parties, right? So not easy to. Yeah, I don't know whether that's gonna encourage you more to join, or right, that might scare people away from the role. But it sounds a lot of fun. Never a dull moment for sure. So, about the role itself, right? Overall, I think for folks who have been in the B2B background, the product marketing is pretty well known. But outside of the circle, it's still relatively lesser known type of a marketing role, because whenever people talk about, hey, growth, the marketing, two things come in mind. It's like channel, right? We run the channel, that's performance, or branding, or maybe the sales. Those are observable ones. Recently, I see the product marketing definitely pop up, sometimes in small, sometimes in big. So maybe in your point of view, who would it need? And also, right, to be fair, many companies don't have this role at all, right? So what kind of company needs to take this role very, very seriously, right? Would need this role, otherwise might be a higher chance of failure potentially.
Yeah, I think it's certainly more common in the B2B SaaS world. And I think every company obviously needs a good story. A lot of B2C companies, not in the tech space, but other, say if you're a CPG company and stuff, right, the story is done by the brand manager. So there is someone who's working on your story, and that like every company needs. But I would say if you're in a space that's like more crowded and you really need to differentiate yourself against others in terms of capability or your positioning, that's where product marketing can add the most value. And then if you have a large sales team that needs to be enabled, that needs to sort of stay up to date on all the new features, like what's happening in the industry, you also will need product marketing to help with that. Yeah.
Got it. So you mean all the AI startups?
So I was at a very early stage startup, on the product market fit and stuff. That's something the founders also need to figure out themselves, right? For V1 of the product market fit and the positioning, whether they have a product marketer or not, the founders will need to be deeply involved.
I'm curious, Kelly, like speaking of early stage startups, the first marketing person, right? Do you think it should be a product marketing person or a growth marketing person?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say product marketing, because growth marketing, there's more like vendors and agencies out there, or like fractional CMOs who can help you with that. But product marketer, it needs like a deep understanding of your product and your market and your customer and all that. And it's like harder to get from a vendor. Versus I've seen a lot of companies do very well to hire. There are a lot of growth consultants, right? Or like a web page or events. There's a lot of great like consultants and vendors out there who can help you with the specific activations, versus product marketer is really like your company, it's your know-how, and it's hard for someone who's here not on a full-time base to help you. Yeah.
Speaking of a hot take, do you think product marketing consultants would work? And
there are a lot of I've hired like the vendors and stuff. So on like specific projects and whatnot, they can add a lot of value. And like at DocuSign, we used to hire them to backfill people when they're on parental leave. So that's a big one. And then there's some new releases of product wouldn't justify a full-time product marketer to work on them, but they can have a consultant to work on them. Yeah.
Yeah, you being an advisor to startups, right? Maybe can you touch on how in those scenarios, sounds like the companies are probably a little too early to hire a full-time. So maybe can you touch on, right, what are you at the early stage? I'm sure there are probably a little bit less things to do. So maybe can you touch on, right, when the earlier stage company are thinking about, hey, right, I need some help from external to help with product marketing, and what value are you bringing in on their behalf?
Yeah. A few things. First is like sort of providing a thought partner and a sounding board. Be like, oh, what does good look like as we like brainstorm things? Really like a thought partner, because a lot of the product market fit, or where do you want to fit in the market? Are you like the high end version, or are you the value version? These like decisions like that really need to be coming from the founders. So, but the advisor can be a great thought partner to help walk the founders through what are the implications, right? If you want to be the high-end provider in the market, what do you need to do? What does that mean? What will your messaging look like? And vice versa, right? So that's one. Sometimes also can provide advice on like who to hire or what function to build out. Like Holly's question, right? Who do I hire first? How do I hire? Right? The answer can be a consultant versus a full-time versus like a variety of different ways they can make it happen. So the advisor can also help with like just think these things through and even provide contacts, or like, okay, I decided I want to hire say a product marketer. What should I look for? And then it can be like, oh, maybe someone who has experience down XYZ at companies in certain space or certain stage. So more like advisory on that side. And then bounce around ideas on how to go to market, right? With partner, which channel. So yeah, I would say like a thought partner is probably the best way to describe it. I mean, it depends on the project. You can also be hands-on and doing work like web copies or like email campaign copies and stuff. It depends on what they need and so which stage and your own experience as well.
Okay, so that came and a question I always have, like, what is the best way to divide the content that's produced by product marketing team versus content marketing team? What's a rule?
Yeah, usually product marketer doesn't necessarily create content. It's like created by the content marketing team, and then product marketer will review. Yeah, obviously with ChatGPT coming, and then depends on the product, you can certainly like get help with the writing via one of those tools.
So let's say like a website copy, is it typically done product marketing?
Yes. Yeah, that's a good one. Yes. Yeah, web copy is usually done by product marketer. I feel like and then like things we say at conferences and stuff is done by product marketer. I think again like blog, ebook, usually it's done by content marketing.
Yeah. So my take on this one is I have seen most, right, back to the advisor, the role and responsibility, right? I've seen probably just one company start up knowing their language barriers and decide to hire their first marketing person as a product marketer. Whereas the majority of other persons will just go out, make numbers, right? Head of marketing, right? Performance marketing. And it was it makes a huge difference because for the company, like you said, at the pre-PMF stage, that the company have a full-time product marketing was iterating their messaging and the value prop a lot faster than the other ones. And this is obvious. I personally, I think a lot of companies should really, especially the startup, should really prioritize the thinking of the product marketing. Not only there's a lot of Asian companies coming to the US. There's also a ton of European companies coming to the US, right? The sales you can see it on first sight, right? They're not a US company. So personally, I think either have a full-time to help them out, or even have an advisor to what you said, right? Help revise the web page. Would it be super beneficial, because at that stage, right, you're not growth ready. Hiring the first growth marketer kind of wouldn't make sense. You're gonna run into conversion issues anyway.
Yeah, you make sure the messaging really you nailed it, like the flow works, then you put dollars behind it, you can actually sort of reap the benefits. Yeah.
Got it. Interesting.
Awesome, Kelly. This has been super insightful. Learned a lot, and thank you, the audience, for all the questions.
Yeah. So a question about the what tools I use. Nothing. It's really just like Google, Slack, right? Like the sales enablement platform, and that's about it. Not really like a big too heavy role. Not like a growth marketer have all these MarTech vendors you interact with. Yeah,
sales team too, right? I would say sales and the performance are probably juggling between a million different tools. Good luck to them. No, at least there is some simplicity in your world. So before we drop, I'm curious, any other things you'd like to share? Maybe challenges. I think we touch upon the measurement piece, right? The success measurement, right? Anything you'd like to share with the audience, right? Do you any difficulties you find in the role?
I mean, obviously, sometimes it's hard to quantify or measure impact, especially the short-term impact. And then also the role just looks differently in every company. So sometimes it's like harder to navigate, because what one company needs may not be what the other company needs. But that's also what keeps it fun. So I would say that's like some of the challenges in the space.
Okay, I see. Cool. Could be fun too, right? Depending on what kind of a challenge the person want to take it on. All right. All right, cool. Yeah, I think we're at the top of an hour. Well, thank you so much, Kelly. This is a very inspiring and educational chat, sharing all the details, framework, and the examples. So learned a lot. Well, thank you so much, and thank you everyone for joining us. Okay.
Bye everyone.
Have a good day.